course they will. With them all dead, we confront the lady who made off with the artifact, who at first thought we had come to join them in defecting to the Necromancer cult. I don't really get why so many people are willing to defect to such an unknown cause. Do all these people really want to just play with dead bodies that much? I don't get it, and our enemies' motivations are never explained, except the King of Worms, who just wants to destroy the guild because that's been his fetish for the past few centuries.
I'd like to have you mostly intact, so Manimarco can suck the marrow from your bones.
Anyways, she turns on us, and so does her bodyguards. We kill them, get the amulet back, and prepare to stroll out of the dungeon
Live Salafa
unaccosted,
message?
but the
That's
game
crazy.
goes, "Nah, not so fast. You thought you tricked me, and wouldn't you know it, all the mages we killed are respawned as
Oh, yeah, I finished that other guy's Oblivion
I'm
video.
seriously just
And then I tried to do like 3 of his other videos on different videos, and they were all age restricted, which makes getting them into my video player slightly more annoying. So instead we're just watching a different video on Oblivion still by a different
He
guy.
wants us to go to a special ruin to get a colossal black soul gem that has been prepared for Manimarco to carry out his evil plans. So we go there and find 3 battle mages who had been scoping the place out, waiting for an opportunity to attack. We were put in charge of dictating their tactics, and I just have no idea why this was even something they bothered to write in the script. It's just so stupid. They each explain
I
what
can
method
get
of
those
combat
other ones
they are most
working,
effective
so I
with,
probably
and we are
will
given a
like
choice to
later,
have them
but
be close to the entrance of the place.
you know,
or
I haven't watched.
this isn't a real brain
I've
scratcher.
not listened to this video.
One says she's good
before,
with an
so.
axe, one says she's good with long-range spells, and the other says he's good with swords and healing spells. Even if you screw up somehow, who really cares? Once we get the chain, we head into the ruins, and then it's just yet another necromancer-filled dungeon crawl. We're actually hunting down the former head of the Shaden Hall Mages Guild, the one with the black soul gems. I guess they wanted to make this all come full circle or something, but honestly, I didn't even notice it was him until I read it on the wiki, so once again, who cares? Loot the big soul gem and head back to the guild for our final quest.
How are you doing?
This here Travin does something really unexpected, and I mean that sincerely. He sets himself on fire and kills himself, trapping his own soul in the gem because it was designed for his own soul. Doing this makes it so that we won't get turned into a thrall because who knows. He then promotes us to Archmage because it's the end of the quest line, and that means we have to be made the head of the guild now. I've stopped.
That's awesome. Why? I knew it would do that. 1 second. Forgot to write down where the fuck it was. Oh well. Oh, yeah. I kind of figured you wouldn't do that. Yeah, I have no idea. Oh, wait. Yeah, I do. Wait. We're like... here-ish.
Who by now has got to be more than annoyed with our constant pestering. Whatever, we go out there and Hasseldoor says he'll tell us, but we gotta do something for him.
Trolled.
Surprised, he asks? No, not in the slightest. I'm not surprised by anything in this fucking questline anymore. He wants us to clear out a cave of vampires, but more importantly get rid of a band of vampire hunters, because it's bad for business having vampire hunters in a city run by a count who is a vampire. Turns out these vampire hunters are complete dicks for whatever reason, so we send them to the cave with the vampires, where they proceed to kill each other but ultimately die, because vampires in this game are no joke if you aren't expecting them.
Is that so? Well, perhaps we'll have to pay them a little visit. Thanks for the tip, friend.
I play clean up, looting them all for some nice stuff, and report back to Hasseldoor. He tells us Manimarco, the King of Worms, is back. If you're fresh on your Elder Scrolls lore, then you'll know this is one bad hombre. He's the arch nemesis of the Mages Guild, and having him back when the leadership of the guild is less than stellar is a problem for sure. Trevin's response is just classic.
I had, perhaps foolishly, believed that necromancy was all but stamped out in Cyrodiil. It seems I couldn't have been more mistaken.
Yeah man, you really couldn't have been more wrong. He tells us to go to Bruma to see what's up with the guild hall.
Oh, I was
because
further
he
than
hasn't
this.
heard from the busybody guild hall leader, which is unusual. As here Travin does something really unexpected, and I mean that sincerely. He's
probably good
out
enough.
of nowhere. And on the other, we have a guild filled with incompetents that seem to hasten their own destruction. The analogies to white-collar tedium and petty, corrupt, soul-crushing institutions are everywhere, to the point that I just think this was.
Can you do it later, or is it just like over?
To be obnoxious. The quests were meant to feel like a waste. I just don't see any other conclusion that can be made. This questline is just so bad that it has to be aware of itself. And if that's the case, why on earth would they have gone with such a take? Was this just a rushed guild? Were they going to go with something else and it just got canned before there was time to make a new questline? So a self-aware commentary on the incompetence of major institutions.
So you're just lazy, okay. Fair enough.
That's my best guess. My only guess. Because in a game filled with mediocre quests, this whole chain was abnormal.
So you're not currently suffering any consequences. You're just being lazy.
The recommendation quests to the main quests. None of this is inherently bad. It makes sense that a giant institution like this would have processes and stuff. But the fact that every second of it is one miserable slog with necromancer dungeon after the next dominating half the quests. The fact that you barely do anything that feels even related to magic, and instead has you playing the role of office intern. The quests don't even react to you using magic solutions or even thoughtful solutions. A pure mage player or a player who refuses to cast even a single spell will have the exact same experience. What a waste of potential and a waste of the player's time. Let's move on.
I've never actually used Canvas. We were gonna use it in my
Fighters Guild is up next. I used to think
for
it was
online college, but I basically
didn't
do that.
It's definitely not the worst. It's close, but at least has moments. In truth, it's just
never used it for like
incredibly
high school.
bland and forgettable. I have no intentions of lingering on it to dissect every week dungeon crawl quest, so let's just blast right through it. Everyone likes to mention the first quest, a rat problem, as one of the standout quests in the line. This quest has you going to some crazy old bat's house in Anvil under the assumption that she wants to get rid of the rats in her basement. Well, you know what they say about assumptions.
That's right. Rats in my basement, and something has been killing them. It's horrible. My poor babies. You must do something. I don't know what I'd do without them. Their little pink noses, scaly little tails. Please get to the basement and find out what's happening.
So we gotta get rid of the mountain lions killing her beloved rats.
If they're out here, they'll be in this area. I can't imagine there are more than 4 of them. Let's take care of this.
We get sent on a wild goose chase and eventually find out it was her neighbor who just wanted the rats gone. She didn't mean to lure mountain lions into town because, you know, starving mountain lions prowling the streets are probably more dangerous than some domesticated rats locked in a basement. We end up saving the rats and that's it. We collect our pay and go home. It's this sort of disconnected contract work that makes up the bulk of your time in the Fighters Guild. The Mages Guild felt like it was entirely filler from the first mission to the last. Nothing really stand out except for the quests that had some thin story tossed over it to make the dungeon crawls and boring errands feel connected. Fighters Guild retains a lot of that legacy of filler content, but not to the same extent. And at least here it has some reasoning.
Oh yeah, also, this guy actually fucking like puts background music in his videos, so I don't have to supply my own, which is pretty cool.
We get a quest from
Interesting concept.
The leader of the Shadenhall branch, the leader of the Anvil branch, and Modron, who I think is the second in command of the guild or something. I don't really know, mostly because the game gave me no reason to care about the structure of the guild at all. The Fighters Guild feels like a guild in name only. As much as I bitched about the Mages Guild, it at least felt like one.
That was cool.
The structure made sense, there was a purpose to the halls, aside from the Bruma chapter, which gets torched anyway. The Arcane University centralizes the entire operation. Apparently, the Coral Hall is the main hall for the Fighters Guild, but that's only because that's where the Guildmaster's office is. It feels arbitrary, but the existence of the halls in general feel arbitrary. I don't know if we even go into the Guild Hall and skin grad or film. Not only that, the halls really offer nothing except some trainers and a place to sleep. When it comes to accommodations, the Fighters Guild really offers nothing, and asks too much for us to believe that this is supposed to be a highly organized operation that has a lot to offer its members. The distinction between the three quest givers is important, because unless the quests are coming from Modron, the main story of the quest line isn't progressing. Modron's quests all revolve around a rival mercenary company moving into Leyawiin, calling themselves the Blackwood Company. These guys are making a reputation for taking the shady contracts the Fighters Guild is too honorable and legitimate to touch. Unfortunately, this is costing the guild contracts, and our fellow guildmates are starting to feel that crunch. I can't really blame them. 100 gold for doing dangerous work is a joke of a reward. As you level up, that goes up, but because of how everything scales and is relative, we'll never be making worthwhile money from these jobs. And you can forget about special rewards like gear. This is a cash-only endeavor. But only Modron gives the interesting quests, because as it turns out, a rat problem is the only creative and interesting one you'll get that isn't a story quest. The rest are just half-baked dungeon dives for this manufactured reason or that. After coming out of the Mages Guild, these dungeon dives have gotten really stale. And when I say Modron gives the interesting quests, I only mean that relatively speaking. The quests still usually devolve into a dungeon crawl, but they at least are bookmarked by some thought-provoking dialogue. I mean that with the biggest asterisk possible. The mystery of the Blackwood Company is teased for way too long in an attempt to pad out the questline. It starts picking up in the last hour or so of the questline, but gets interrupted by a couple more filler quests before reaching its conclusion. I'm not going to go through all the quests like I did with the Mages Guild, because really, there's just not much here. The guild is 80% unrelated side quests that are just not interesting in the least bit. Not to play, not to watch, and definitely not to discuss. A lot of the quote-unquote story quests just...
Do you like how I could, instead of doing this, just play GD and get like 5 to 10 times the viewers?
The Company things finally start picking up, but that's not until the 11th hour of the quest line. Anyway, we are sent to investigate
the issue being that
GD
sucks.
Kidnap and torture a Blackwood Company member by subjecting him to the speechcraft mechanics until he buckles. We find out they have a history in their haul from Blackmarsh, and they all drink its sap to give them strength. We are sent to go join up, which they don't question because people have been.
Well, I could just port it over, but it'd be kind of overly distracting.
An initiation process and drink some
Unless I was like building. I could do like a building stream, but no one will watch that either, so.
We slay all the goblins and pass out again, waking up in Modron's house, who tells us we were found by our Fighters Guild guildmates passed out in the street. So, is the Blackwood Company on?
If we're gonna have no one watching me, I'd rather have no one watch me play Borderlands.
Or are they just in the habit of letting their members pass out on the streets after drinking his sap and doing a job? Once again, this just doesn't make any sense, but whatever. Modron says this doesn't make any sense, so we should go see the village. There's supposed to be a bunch of dead NPCs, but my game bugged out, so their bodies were done. What happened was that his sap made the villagers look like the goblins I was killing, and I guess this explains how they get people to stomach doing the dirty work. But this is never reinforced because all the people we meet from the Blackwood Company are just total dicks who act like bandits, including the guy whose ass I tried protecting because he had fallen on hard times and had a family. He turns out to be a piece of shit and we are forced to kill him, I guess teaching us the important lesson to never be merciful in this game. But if I was to believe these guys needed hallucinogens to carry out their dirty work, the game failed to convince me. We're then sent back to the Blackwood Company to confront them and then destroy the history. It's a quick brawl that ends with us destroying the pump and lighting the tree on fire. It's a neat little scene that provides one of the few standout moments of the questline. The guildmaster berates us and then promotes us because she realizes she's been a total dunce, and because of her inability to acknowledge the threat of the Blackwood Company, a lot of people died and her guild almost imploded. She does a smart thing and recognizes she's out of her element. Just like with the Mages Guild, apparently it's preferable for the guild to operate with an absent leader, aka the player, as opposed to someone who manages to make all the wrong calls all the time and doesn't realize until the guild faces a massive existential crisis. It's crazy that I spent 6 times the words talking about the Mages Guild as opposed to the Fighters Guild when I think the Fighters Guild is better. That's just because the Mages Guild was so bad, there was almost an endless amount to discuss. The Fighters Guild is just a bland collection of busy work. It's not insulting to the player's intelligence or anything, it just doesn't ask the player to believe in what it's setting up. It just exists, and it's done just as soon as it starts to overstay its welcome. There's really nothing to discuss about such a quest line. So let's start talking about a guild that has a lot more going on. It's a bit of a toss-up between which guild is my personal favorite, the Thieves Guild or the Dark Brotherhood. I rank the Thieves Guild just a little bit lower because its story doesn't really get good until near the end, while the Dark Brotherhood is consistently great the whole way through. Regardless, I hold the Thieves Guild in extremely high regard, especially when compared to the previous two guilds and the main story in general. Unlike the previous two guilds, the Thieves Guild can't just be joined on a whim. For starters, they aren't even really a guild, as they don't have a guild hall or any real central leadership, save for the Grey Fox and a few doyens. It's more like a network of criminal contacts that share information and coordinate for certain things, but they all cooperate and offer their protection to each other. It's a very cool and intelligent structure, and Bethesda actually portrays it exceptionally well. You're always meeting contacts in secret locations or in someone's house or in public with the guise of hiding in plain sight. It's a very exclusive club, but once you're in, you'll occasionally find someone in a city who recognizes you as a guild member and greets you with secret greetings and lots of innuendo to your shared membership. This illusion is not once, as far as I've ever seen, broken once it's established, and it makes the guild feel very consistent, and it's just very well executed. The Thieves Guild is all about mystery, secrecy, rumors, and misdirection. That tone is established before you even find the guild, and it stays true all the way to the end. So, the first challenge is joining the guild in the first place. You may want to join even if you don't know about the quest line and such, because NPCs will mention this is the best way to sell stolen goods, or you might see that tip on the loading screens. There's a few different ways to learn about and join the guild. My preferred way is just to get a bounty and then get caught and serve a sentence in jail.
Zeus
Once free, a
uploaded.
representative will contact us after a little while and tell us about a meeting in the Waterfront District. Another way is to look at the wanted posters for the Grey Fox posted around the Imperial City and then ask NPCs and beggars until eventually one of them will spill the beans if they have a high enough disposition. Either way, the ticket is the meeting in the Waterfront District, which will only happen once we learn about it. We can't just go there one random night and wait. Once there, we are greeted by two prospective recruits and Armand Christophe, the local guild representative, or doyen as they are referred to in the guild. He proposes a contest to see who's the best thief, and whoever wins will be the one joining that night. He gives only two instructions: steal the diary of a local man living in the Imperial City, and do not murder anyone in the process. Everything else is up to us and fair game, including stealing the book from each other. The complete freedom to this quest is the first thing that immediately sets it apart from anything else we've seen yet. No other quest, especially guild quests, told us what it wanted us to get and specifically said the specifics are up to us to decide. This is not an anomaly. In fact, this will be the norm for both the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood going forward. In fact, the Thieves Guild has some of the most open-ended quests in the game, and this is the fairly obvious secret to why the quest works so damn well. We managed to beat the other thief participating in this contest before she could snatch it. But even if she did manage to beat us to the punch, we would have had plenty of opportunities to steal it back from her. And even failing that, there would be a second quest that isn't a contest that just charges us with stealing a sword from a shopkeeper's house. Once again, another open-ended objective. But we were quick on the scene, and with the diary in tow, we head back to Christophe for entry into the guild. He inducts us into the guild proper and introduces us to the way things work in the guild. Starting off, we only have Ungar and Bruma to act as our fetch. We can only sell our stolen goods to him, and he's out of the way and low on gold. But we need to fence a certain amount of gold to unlock new quests in the guild, encourring some independent thievery between quests.
Oh, no, it's a fucking class one. He's up 2 purples. Neither of them are the thing I want.
So we spent a couple of nights raiding a few locations in the Imperial City and called it a day. But it's great that if you're playing an actual thief, the guild itself encourages more of it, as opposed to the Mages Guild, which is entirely ambivalent to whatever you do when not doing Mages Guild quests. Christophe also can sell us lockpicks and pay off bounties at a discount, but I rarely rack up bounties and I got the skeleton keys, so lockpicks are a non-issue now. But still, it's neat to have an option like this built into the guild for this type of play.
Oh yeah, so LFO. You wanna know something funny? Partially, not, it's mostly not, but a decent percent of the amount that my channel is currently getting monetized is because of you just lurking in my stream.
Who the Grey Fox intends to refund. This quest introduces us to one of the main antagonists of the Thieves Guild early on, Hieronymus Lex.
I've gotten like
set the Grey Fox up as more of a Robin Hood type.
60-ish hours of watch time just from streaming the past like weekish.
This quest is more complicated than the previous, as it requires us to rob the city,
which is what I needed.
Some random dude's
well, also I got like 30 subs from doing a level request stream. I should do this more probably.
We are allowed to enter the first floor of, but none of the other floors without trespassing. Hanging around the first level lets us see the comings and goings of the different guards, and this is awesome because it uses Bethesda's Radiant AI to dictate when the guards change shifts. Using what we're seeing and a little logic, we pick a time that is a likely good time to get our sneak
What
on,
happened?
and we head up to the restricted areas. There's no quest marker to tell us where the item actually is, so we gotta do some poking around to find its stash. We locate the documents and the gold from Lex's desk, so we swipe it and beeline it out of there. Stealing from the city guard is an audacious thing for a new thief to attempt, and while the quest isn't exactly that difficult, it still feels rewarding because of that context. Context such as this is what the other two guilds in the main story was so badly lacking, which is why none of what we'd been doing in those quest lines felt like it mattered. It's incredible how much just a little context and rational motivation can elevate a simple quest such as this. Back at the waterfront, we give the goods to Kristoff and he's pleased. Next, he wants us to nick a statuette of a deceased woman in Shadenhall for an unnamed buyer. Once again, simple premise, but all we are told is to go get the thing and don't kill anyone. The rest is entirely up to us. So the first order of business, as usual, is finding the location of the thing, which is easy enough to locate if we just ask a beggar about the statue.
Kind of impressed he actually paid up on that.
Chapel Undercroft, so that's where we head.
Dude, you wanna know what I used to do? In like middle and early high school? I would carry around like a fair amount of $1 bills. So if I wanted someone to do something, I would just give them $1 and be like, hey, do this. And they'd usually do it. So I'd recommend this strategy. It's super fucking funny.
And upon asking some fellow thieves, they reveal Kristoff has gone underground to avoid arrest. This was all a ruse by Kristoff to flush out an informant in the guild. And now they know Mivrino Arano.
Also, fun fact,
this being the Thieves Guild and not the Dark Brotherhood,
if you ask someone if they know what the time is, even if you are obviously like looking at your phone or something, they'll just tell you. Like they'll bring out their phone and look it up to tell you. Super funny.
And eventually Lex trusts us enough to at least go and check it out. He's very reluctant to believe us because Arano has been feeding him information for a while now, so it doesn't quite add up why should be the thief. But when he gets there, he finds the bust and places her under arrest, assuming she was formulating some sort of conspiracy to cover her own misdeeds. With the informant in custody and the matter of the stolen bust now settled, things can continue as usual. We are rewarded and then told our time with Kristoff has come to an end, and it's time for us to report to our new doyen in Breville. Riva is our new quest giver in Breville, who likes to spend most of her days either reading at home or at the lonely
yeah, some people
unassuming life. All in
have their brains off.
Her role in the guild, a guarded secret. It lends her character some interesting depth, which really didn't require much work on the developer's part, but makes Skrifa seem
or
like
just
she has
retarded,
her shit
you know,
in order, and
permanently.
that's why she's in charge around
There's
here.
that too.
Someone like this is someone I want to be working for, not an imbecile like Traven, whose greatest contributions to our efforts to save his own guild was killing himself. Skrifa gives us a job. Go to Leowyn and help a former guild member deal with a freelance thief who stole a valuable ring from her. So we head over to the swampy city and start poking around until we find out where our contact, Adarji, is located. We find her and get the full scoop. An Argonian freelance thief, Amuse, stole the ring. She wants blood for this, but we aren't at liberty to oblige, so she just asks for us to make him suffer. Apparently Adarji has a hatred for Argonians, and other people in town will make mention of this from time to time, which is something I mentioned the game lacked in my previous video. I noted all places had this. So the designer of the Thieves Guild not only worked to make the guild itself fleshed out and logical, they also went out of their way
he
to
just
add some
melts.
depth to
And
their
he
own characters to use them to create more depth.
Just
in the game
overlaps the
itself.
fucking
That's
damage
some
over
serious
time
effort,
sound
but
effect a
once
million
again,
times.
none of the other quest lines up until this
Well, I guess
point
he's just
bothered to
overlapping
interact with the
his
world,
like damage
let alone add to that.
sound a million times.
We go back to the beggars who mention Amuse has been arrested for trying to swindle a countess.
Yeah, we got him here. Argonians aren't allowed visitors, though. Countess Alicia's orders. Just a thing about the lizard folk. Amuse, you say? I thought you wanted to see Amude. He's off limits. Amuse, though, is just down the hall. Make it quick.
We gain access to the prisoner who turns out to be the Argonian we had met trying to join the Thieves Guild with us earlier. In exchange for a lockpick, he tells us that the ring, in fact, belongs to the Countess, so she locked him up after he tried to ransom the ring back to her, with the ring now in her possession again. We are supposed to go back to Adarji to avoid a quest-breaking bug, but I didn't know that and went straight to asking around the castle about the ring and the Countess. It's not a big deal. Being on PC, I was able to unstuck the quest when it did bug out. But I missed out on a conversation with Adarji when she said she'd buy the ring back from us if we managed to get it back. Amuse is a stupid lizard for trying to sell the thing because the ring lets Adarji read the secret letter to the Countess, which is information she then sells. So yeah, he done goofed trying to sell the ring. Once again, we find ourselves dealing with a guild member who knows what she's doing and has a nice little gig going. Proving this guild has its fair share of clever schemers, and not just people who we are meant to believe are the best at what they do simply because they are members of the guild, and their credentials aren't meant for us to question. Anyway, in the castle we find a bribable mouth who tells us the Countess only takes the ring off when she retires for the night and places it in a jewelry box beside her bed. At least, this lady is supposed to be in the castle. But here's where the bugs start kicking in, and she's wandering the countryside for some reason. She tells us the secret passageway into the private chambers of the Countess, the same passage that someone else says is used to transport Argonians to a torture chamber. So there's some serious racism towards Argonians in this town, once again, adding to the world. We sneak into the castle and use the passageways as described, but here's a quest-breaking bug: the ring isn't actually in the box. I eventually figure out my folly and just use some console commands to fix the quest, and away we go. Back to Adarji, who thanks us and hopes we made the filthy Argonians suffer, as she says. Personally, I got no problems with Argonians, but damn, does this make Leyland look like less than an ideal place for my lizard friends. Back in Bravil, we get our reward and complete the quest. Our next job is sending us back to the Imperial City. Things with our old friend Hieronymus Lex is starting to heat up again. They're turning over the waterfront looking for the Grey Fox. Armand Christophe is under house arrest, and many of our fellow guildmates are either arrested or in hiding. We gotta make contact with one of the local thieves there and coordinate a retaliation. We meet up with Methridel, who is coordinating a giant synchronized theft spree. 5 high-profile thefts at 5 locations in the city at the same time. The logic being, Lex will be recalled to shore up security in those other parts of the city and won't have the resources to maintain the occupation of the waterfront. A neat little plan. Our involvement is to
16
steal
kills,
staff
no
from the
drop.
Archmage's quarters.
That's just today.
Well, we are the Archmage. So, okay. We are to steal from ourselves then. Yeah, this part wasn't very thought out, I guess. So we just walk into our own quarters, take the staff that wasn't there last time we were here, and then we leave a note in our own nightstand for nobody to discover. And then we just walk out, no questions asked. Well done, I guess. Methridel seems to think so, and has us go to the waterfront and see when Lex gets recalled. So we do, and Lex is ordered back by the mages when a Dremora messenger appears. Not so subtle choice of messengers, especially considering we just had an Oblivion invasion, and the guild was almost destroyed by necromancers who loved conjuring Daedra. Methridel then has us return the staff to the guild, but not by bringing it back to the university because that would arouse suspicion. Instead, we are to leave it in the house of a retired guild member and hope they receive the message that this was only business and the guild means no harm to the Mages Guild. Once again, we are the Archmage, so none of this would be a problem, but okay then. It's only a simple matter of asking the beggars where the mage lives, breaking into his house at night, and depositing the staff in a chest while he sleeps and slipping out. Once we're done, it's back to Bravil for our reward. I don't know. I really like this quest on paper, but the execution is very wonky thanks to us being the Archmage. I get the feeling this quest was made before it was decided the player would become the Archmage. It actually makes me think the Mages Guild was one of the later questlines designed, maybe even the last, or maybe it was just undergoing a sudden redesign. Because I can't see someone taking what must have been days of work to make this quest without once someone going, hey, you know the player can be the Archmage, right? It would also explain why the Mages Guild was so shit, while the Thieves Guild was so good. If they made the Thieves Guild early on, it would have had more time before Crunchyroll did. I have no evidence to back me up, just a hunch based off of a few quests, but it's not all unheard of for something like this to happen. And it's a pretty simple explanation for why we got such wildly different levels of quality in these quest lines. The next quest is a special one, relevant to the Grey Fox himself. Skriva asks us to go to Skingrad and look for a thief who has failed to complete his task. He was charged with stealing a book, but he never returned, and now they're sending us to find the book and the thief if we can. A quick word with the ever-knowledgeable beggars has us learning of the thief's arrest after he bragged about the heist at a bar. So once again, we are in need of gaining access to the guarded dungeons of the castle.
We're a bit suspicious of strangers here. Don't give us anything to be suspicious about. Will you please? No. But it will earn you 2 years in Skingrat's dungeon. Now get lost before I decide to report you.
Trying our luck to bribe our way in a second time yields much less success this time around, though. It turns out there's a ton of ways to get to those cells. One way actually involves us getting hired as a servant in the castle. Unfortunately, I didn't know that this was an option. Instead, went with what my journal hinted at and got myself arrested for petty theft.
Somebody, stop! You violated the law. Pay the court a fine or hope you rot, criminal scum.
Once inside, we see that there's only one prisoner here, and he's not the thief we're looking for. He tells us prisoners are taken by the Pale Lady, and our thief had been taken days ago and hasn't been seen since. Our recent Argonian prisoner was just taken and was bleeding as he was dragged off. So after serving our day in jail, we sneak back into the dungeons and begin following the trail of blood to the castle. The trail ends in a torture dungeon where the Pale Lady, who in fact turns out to be a vampire harvesting the blood of prisoners, attacks us. We slay her and find our dear old friend Amuse locked up again. Across the way is the corpse of our thief and no sign of the book. Amuse tells us he has a message the thief asked him to deliver to the guild if he was to die. We help Amuse escape the dungeons in exchange for the message, which turns out to be the location of the book he had stolen. It's weird to think that this is probably the first death of anyone or anything in his entire quest so far, and it was over a book. I was so used to slaying enemies and creatures in all the other quests and random NPCs dying here and there that I'd become numb to it and just stopped thinking about it. But the death of this thief, even with it happening on the screen, actually has some weight and importance to it. It's a testament to the less is more approach to storytelling. Amuse says he's going to try joining the guild again, thanking us for sparing him from becoming vampire food. We go get the book and bring it back to our doyen in Breville, finishing the quest.
Max.
It's time for Lex to go, according to the Grey Fox. He's been a thorn in the side of the guild for too long, and it turns out that the Countess of Anvil is in need of a new guard captain. The Grey Fox wants him reassigned so as to keep him out of their business in the Imperial City. Once again, they aren't assassins, and killing or ruining an honorable guard captain isn't what the guild is about. The plan is to replace the list of recommendations the steward of the Countess has drawn up with a forged list that highly favors Lex. So, once in Anvil, we find the nearest information kiosk that tells us that we need to get into the desk of the steward, and that the castle blacksmith might be able to help us gain access to that part of the castle. So we go meet the blacksmith, who turns out to be a guild member, and he shows us a secret passage to let us enlist and sneak out. With the aid of the kiosk again, we are able to enlist the services of a stranger who lives in an abandoned shack as a forger. He's very standoffish, but agrees to do the forgery. After a day, we return to pay him and get the forged letter with our board Lex at the top. Then it's just a simple matter of sealing it with the Imperial seal back in the Imperial City. This isn't actually as simple as it sounds because the area is full of guards, but with some patience and luck we can get the letter sealed, and then it's just the matter of delivering it to the Countess, who agrees Lex is the right man for the job. She asks us to deliver his transfer notice, so we hoof it back to the Imperial City and deliver the transfer order to an unamused Lex. But, being the honorable guard that he is, he does not protest to the transfer and concedes defeat by the Grey Fox. Scriva tells us, good job, Lex won't be a problem for the guild anymore and we are rewarded and promoted.
Maybe fate will be kind and deliver him to me in Anvil.
From this point on, we'll be working for the Grey Fox directly. Every so often, when we are waiting around in one of the cities, a messenger will appear to tell us where to meet the Grey Fox. Methridel eventually appears and tells us to meet him in a guildmate's house in Bruma. So we do, and I really love the conversations with the Grey Fox. He's such a smooth character, very mild-mannered and sophisticated. And it doesn't at all seem like his status as the most wanted criminal in all of Tamriel gets to his head. It's no wonder his organization runs so smoothly, and once again I can't help but draw comparisons to the Mages Guild and the Fighters Guild, which were both just so dysfunctional with terribly bland or outright idiotic leaders. It almost feels like they were designed that way to contrast with the criminal organizations in order to say something about Cyrodiil itself, but I think that's just reading into things a little too much. So the Fox tasks us with stealing Sevilla's stone, which was kept under guard in a secret monastery by retired monsters who have been blinded from years of reading Elder Scrolls. Stealing Stealing from a bunch of blind monks doesn't sound so hard, so we head up to the mountains where we bribe our way into the sanctuary where the priests live in total darkness. Fortunately, they are very keen of hearing and are surrounded by other guardians and traps, so sneaking through the large dungeon turns out to be more involved than one would expect. But like the rest of the quest, some good skills, patience, and luck eventually sees us successful, and we are able to slip out with a stone in tow. Back in Bruma, we deliver the stone to the Great Fox, who expresses great joy at having the stone. He claims it will help him see past the defenses of the Imperial Palace, and that he's glad the Emperor had no idea the priests were sitting on this artifact, otherwise he would have had it destroyed or confiscated. This starts to shed light on the scheme the Fox is hatching, but before he says anything else, he insists that we part ways for now. We meet back up in another house in Coral after Amuse, who now has joined the guild and is actually a trusted assistant to the Great Fox, delivers the request to meet up. This time he gives us the task of acquiring the Arrow of Extrication, an arrow capable of unlocking doors. This item had just been acquired by the court wizard in Breville. Asking the beggars once again reveals the fact that the wizard has a secret passage leading to a secret lair where he conducts secret experiments that are too dangerous to be done in the city. So, for the fourth time, we are sneaking around a castle looking for hidden passageways. We eventually find our way to the secret tunnels, which are a nightmare labyrinth of twisting tunnels, some of them underwater, and they are infested with necromancers, conjurers, and daemons. After getting lost down there for quite a while, we managed to get to the court wizard's tower, though it seems he doesn't mind our presence as we are both members of the Mages Guild. Once again, our membership in the Mages Guild causes a weird issue with this questline. Fortunately, nothing breaks as a result, and we are free to just take the Arrow of Extrication, or the head of it, anyhow. That's all there is of it, and the Great Fox notes he will need it repaired once we turn it over to him. He's about to reveal his plan, but cuts himself off, and then we part ways waiting for the next time we meet. It's not long until we are in another house in Shaden Hall, receiving another task from the Fox. This time he has us retrieving the boots of Spring-Heeled Jack, once belonging to a famous thief of the same name who lived 300 years ago. The Great Fox points us to the last known living descendant of Spring-Heeled Jack, a nobleman in the Imperial City who goes by the name Jacobin, Earl of Imbel. Asking around the city reveals his house and the fact that he's a strange man who keeps odd hours as a night owl. Upon breaking into his house, we find a book, but it doesn't reveal the location of the boots, so we are forced to confront him directly. It's pretty obvious at this point that the man is a vampire and hides his affliction from the public. He cowers us and tells us the boots are in the family crypt in the basement, and he's always been too afraid to venture down there himself. Going down there, we see why, as it's full of vampires. We get to the coffin of the famous Jack, only to find the boots aren't in there, only a journal that reveals he never actually died, but instead became a vampire. That vampire now goes by the name Jacobin. Once this is revealed to us, Jacobin, aka Spring-Heeled Jack, comes down to greet us with a claymore and full armor, and we are forced to kill him, taking the boots off his body. He tells us we should prepare for one final heist, as the risks are high, but the reward will be more than worth all this trouble. We then part ways. When we meet up next in the Imperial City, the Great Fox finally reveals his plan: stealing an Elder Scroll from the Imperial Palace Library. This isn't to be sold, but for the notoriety, and because he has plans for the scroll. The plan is a long and intricate one that he's been developing for years, and with Sevilla's stone, he was able to figure out the last few parts to make it all possible. All the jobs we've been doing for him have been to prepare for this grand heist. Naturally, we agree to it, and I'll just let the Great Fox himself explain the details.
The Elder Scrolls are kept in the Imperial Palace, behind a door that cannot be breached. Sevilla's stone has revealed a path around this door. You will have to travel the old way. Once used as an escape route for Imperial Emperors, it has been forgotten for centuries. To unseal the entrance, we must sneak into the basement of the palace and activate the Glass of Time, whatever that is. In the Imperial sewers, here is the key for the gate to that section of the sewers. I picked the pocket of Okato himself to get it. My scrying with Sevilla's stone has provided clues, but not the details. I know the tools you will need there, but not the obstacles themselves. The boots of Spring-Heeled Jack will allow you to leap to an unreachable place. They will also protect you from a long fall. The Arrow of Extrication is the only way to unlock the final door. Take them both. Once you're inside the palace itself, you need to find the reading room. The blind priests will deliver a scroll to you there. I arranged for the notable Celia Cameron to want to read a particular Elder Scroll. Don't ask how. However, she will be unavoidably detained. You will take her place. Do not speak to the priests. They're blindfolded and will not realize it isn't her unless you speak.
Sounds complicated enough. Keeping in the spirit of the whole questline up until this point, we know the vague details but none of the specifics, and it will be up to us to improvise on the spot as we go. The job is ours now, and it's time to pull our final heist.
Ow. I didn't sneeze. But, you know, thanks. Be cool if he dropped it there.
You have the scroll. I can hardly believe it. The odds were clearly against you. Capital job. Capital.
By the time I got to this quest, my skills had leveled up enough to remove a great deal of the difficulty from it. But if I'm being honest, this quest isn't about the challenge, it's about the context of the whole thing. We are stealing by far the most valuable item in the world now. It's simply epic. It feels like we've been preparing for this job ever since we joined up with the guild. We've built up our standing in the guild and proven our skills and loyalty to be entrusted with such a task for the Fox himself. His offer of something much greater than mere gold for this job entices us in just the right way, but the experience of pulling this heist in of itself is a reward. The lengthy crawl through the sewers is definitely more tedious than it ought to have been, especially since the sewers are just a confusing maze of similar looking corridors and chambers filled with undead enemies and goblins. Not exactly the sort of enemies that are easy or fun to try and outsmart, but I love how we've been pulling jobs in the civilized surface of the city for a while. And now we get to see a different side of this. A side that is mostly abandoned and forgotten. It makes you feel like you're exploring ancient secrets, even if these are all spaces we've seen a billion times at this point, filled with enemies we've fought twice as much. But I can't stress enough the power of proper context for quests. I was a little frustrated and lost, sure, but once the sewer bit ended and we found ourselves in the old way that felt very similar to the introduction of the game where we were sneaking through the sewers with
I love how YouTube fucking emails me every time I go live. Like, yeah, I know. I know I went live.
The Imperial basement level goes into an alien ruin segment, and by this point we'd seen enough of these for the mystique to have worn off. Once again, it's the
I didn't know that was a thing. Sounds cool though.
Ruins beneath the Imperial City, and if there was any lingering doubt that the Imperial City had in fact been built by the elves,
not gonna lie, I do not know what that cells is.
It's a brilliant touch that reinforces the feeling that what we are seeing no one has seen in centuries. We bring the scroll back to the Grey Fox, who instructs us to bring a ring to the Countess of Anvil because he wants to see how she reacts, signaling that there's just one last mystery left to sort out in this quest. We agree, as weird as it may seem. When in Anvil we do so, she tells us it belongs to her long-lost husband, whose identity she can't quite figure out, and by this point the mystery should be clear. I'll let the sequence explain the final
Excellent.
bit.
By the power of the Elder Scrolls, I name Emmer Deraloth as the true thief of Nocturnal's cow.
You're the Grey Fox? I've been betrayed.
I am the Grey Fox, but you have not been betrayed.
But
I am also the missing husband,
Corpse. Is it really you? 10 years I've
I should have a
waited for
Shovel
you.
Knight crossover.
Why did you hide from me?
10 years ago I inherited this cow. From the former guildmaster of the Thieves Guild, I became the new guildmaster. And I also received its curse. Whoever wears Nocturnal's cowl shall have his name stricken from history. Once I donned the cowl, no one in all of Tamriel could recognize me. With the cowl, I became
The cow.
Grey Fox. Without it, I was a stranger, even to you.
You mean you were unable to return?
I've stood right next to you, and you didn't even know it. I cried out to you, "Here I am!"
What's the Terraria rating?
Corvus. But you just looked at me, confused.
You have broken my heart for a second time. I cannot let the infamous criminal mastermind, the Grey Fox, become the Count of Anvil. If you try to announce yourself as Corvus, I will deny you. I will deny you before the Emperor if I have to.
I guessed you would say these terrible things to me. That is why I brought my friend along. From this moment forward, I renounce my life of crime forever. I'm passing the Grey Cowl of the Thieves Guild to its new guild master.
There's a lot to unpack here, but essentially all the rumors we have heard about the Grey Fox were partly true because the Grey Fox is an identity created by the magic of the cowl itself. The person bequeathed with it would lose their identity to anyone else and could only be seen as the Grey Fox, explaining how he's been around for 300 years. The original Guildmaster had stolen the Grey Cowl from Nocturnal herself, which was the source of the curse leading to the chain of events Corvus described, which we witnessed ourselves during the quests. With the curse finally lifted and the pages of time altered once more, Corvus renounces his title as Guildmaster and passes it and the curse-lifted cowl over to us, staying true to his promise that the reward would be greater than mere gold, bringing to a satisfying close the Thieves Guild questline. There's so much in this questline that makes it one of the best experiences in the game. As I said in the beginning, the entire Thieves Guild is all about mystery, secrecy, rumors, and misdirection. Bethesda establishes this thematic tone about the guild before you even join it. Hell, when I first played Oblivion, I didn't even think the guild was real. That tone is carried all the way through to the end when it is given a fitting and thematic.
That sounds like Halo music.
All the mysteries surrounding the guild. What is the guild? Who is in it? How do you join it? How do they operate?
Like
Who
Halo
is the
1
leader?
music.
Is the Grey Fox real? Who started the guild? Are the rumors about the Grey Fox true? All of these questions we learn the answers to over the course of the questline, and they are all set up before we even knew if the guild was even real, or just a figment of people's imagination. Not a single
it just
question
is.
left
Yeah, okay.
unanswered, and they are all answered in a satisfying way. By the end of the guild, we understand its
Just play Halo 1.
if we make it up, how they operate,
Again.
their motivations, how they impact Cyrodiil, and how Cyrodiil feels about them in response.
I guess Halo
It's
CE,
all there.
whatever.
It perfectly integrates with the world and does so much to build up certain aspects of itself, the world, and the characters related to the guild. It's something none of the major quests or guilds leading up to this point have done. But going even deeper into the nuts and bolts of the quests themselves, I gotta say there isn't a bad quest in the bunch. Some of them are weaker than others, but even the worst quests in the line beat the best of the Mages Guild. It's because the quests are designed to play off the greatest strengths of Oblivion itself, which is player freedom. The game trusts you to solve the open-ended objectives yourself, to find the solutions yourself, and use what you've been learning about the game and its systems to come up with solutions. They even use the game systems like Radiant AI to build some of their objectives around, elevating the systems to more than just the cheap window dressings they ordinarily are relegated to. There's plenty of ways to get most of these quests done. Many of those ways are probably cheesy or could break the game, but they are there, and the game doesn't even straitjacket you the way the Mages Guild does. In fact, the Mages Guild never even trusts you with open objectives, as the entire guild was about completing boring, trivial fetch and delivery tasks, or devolves into some dungeon crawling experience we can get by just wandering the world on our own time. The Thieves Guild offers unique opportunities for challenges and experiences that simply cannot be had anywhere else. I'll briefly mention the fact that the guild also encourages independent thieving to reinforce the idea that you're a fucking thief, while the Mages Guild is absolutely none of that. You can go through the entire Mages Guild without casting a single spell. Meanwhile, sneaking, lockpicking, and stealing shit is absolutely essential to the Thieves Guild. Somehow the guild manages to restrict you to certain playstyles that is thematically relevant to it and yet feels far more liberating and rewarding than a quest that felt like it went out of its way to be as non-committal to a particular playstyle as possible. The Thieves Guild has proved that Bethesda didn't have to be so terrified of putting limits on player freedom at certain junctions of the game. We have a perfect example of this here that will actually make the game feel more liberating. Bethesda just had to learn to trust their own players more. Put into the greater context of Oblivion, the Thieves Guild actually leaves me a little sad. It shows what this game could have actually been if there was this level of commitment to the quality of its development. It's one of the really high highs that makes the really low lows so intolerable in retrospect. This is why I chose to play these quests in worst to best order. I don't think I would have been able to stomach the Mages Guild if the reverse order was taken. That's how starkly different these two guilds stand. And that, I think, perfectly summarizes the feeling I get from Oblivion as a whole. But now we're pulling away from the Thieves Guild, so it's probably about time to say farewell to it in general and welcome our next and final major quest line to the stage. Sithis is calling. Good God, I did not even for a second think this video was going to be this long. I had no intention of going this deep, covering some of the guilds quest by quest, but I just couldn't think of a better way to abbreviate this stuff. Each quest in some of these quest chains showed a different aspect, and if I want to paint as complete of a picture of Oblivion as I can, I have no choice but to pick through them slowly. Unfortunately, this means I have to split the video about the quest into 2 videos because I ain't editing a 4-hour timeline. No way, no how. I was hoping I'd at least get the Dark Brotherhood into this video, but the Thieves Guild dominated too much time, and I need to give the Dark Brotherhood its proper dues.
So I don't know how to like.
The main story, the Mages Guild, and the
Like he
Thieves
puts
Guild
all his videos into one video and he doesn't like cut out the intros and outros.
More to
Okay.
talk about than I originally had in mind as I'm going. I already know the Dark Brotherhood is going to be a beast, but with this newfound knowledge, there's no way I was making it into part 1. So follow me into the next video where we will finally conclude the guilds, get into some notable side quests, and cover the Daedric Shrines. Please consider doing the things that appeal to the algorithm gods, and I'll see you in the next one.
Keeps his fucking outro music. This is awesome. Or maybe it's the intro music. I don't fucking know. No, that was outro music. Ow.
You sleep rather soundly for a murderer. That's good. You'll need a clear conscience for what I'm about to propose.
I'll never forget the first time I had this encounter. I remember finding some innocent man out camping in the mountains with his dog. I think I mistook him for a bandit or something, and when the message popped up that my murder had been witnessed, I thought that meant I was going to gain a bounty. I was surprised when the guards didn't hunt me down in the Imperial City and sort of forgot about the whole thing until Lucien Lachance greeted me as I awoke. I always thought that was an interesting way to get into a guild. Like the Thieves Guild that actually requires us to do some stealing for us to get in, or at least one of the methods anyhow. The Dark Brotherhood requires us to commit a murder in order to be invited to join. It immediately establishes the tone for the guild through the player's experiences and not because some dialogue or text box tells us so. This first conversation with Lucien Lachance is forever burned into my brain. I can recall most of it verbatim, and for good reason. It's just awesome. It's corny and cliche, but for some reason, between the voice acting, the robes, and the fact that some unknown entity has been watching us kill and Lachance has been literally watching us sleep, the whole conversation just immediately hooks me. I'll be the first to admit the Dark Brotherhood is definitely the guild designed for the edgy teenager that I was back when I first played the game. It's almost cartoonishly evil to me now that I'm older, and while still edgy, at least I'm a little bit more aware of it. It's not the edgy cool factor that makes it rank so highly for me these days. No, it's more valid than that, at least. So let's really start getting into this thing. Lachance offers us a rare opportunity to apply our unique gift for taking life without pity or remorse. If we want to join this elite super secretive family of unscrupulous killers, we need to perform another act of murder, but this time less wanted and more departed. Staying at the Inn of El Omen, which is a great name for an inn, I must say. Who wouldn't want to stay at such a welcoming place? There lives an old man named Rufio. Our task is to make him not living. We can accept or refuse, though I don't actually know what happens if you say you aren't a murderer, because why would we choose that if we aren't trying to join a guild of assassins? This game has programmed me to dismiss dialogue options, as they never really had any sort of impact on gameplay. The Dark Brotherhood, despite having more options than any of the other quest lines, upholds that tradition. My guess is that they just had them for added roleplaying. Anyways, down at the Inn of Ill Omen, where it's happy hour all hours, we find out Rufio has been living here for some time and spends most of his time sleeping in the basement alone, never coming up to mingle with the people of the inn. The innkeep isn't sure what his deal is, but he pays his tab, and that's all that really matters. Well, we might as well alert the housekeeping staff and fetch an undertaker, because you're about to have a corpse down there instead of a patron. We head down and do the simple deed and stroll on out, nobody none the wiser. The next time we sleep in a bed that LeChance deems safe, he materializes and congratulates us on a job well done, and welcomes us into this dysfunctional but beautiful family. He instructs us to make it a shaded hall where we will find an abandoned house with a unique door in the basement. He will ask us a question, to which we just simply respond, "Sanguine, my brother," and open sesame, we are in.
True. I mean, it's also a single player game, so I'd say why spend money on it regardless.
It's kind of weird how homey and safe the sanctuary feels. It actually feels more welcoming than any of the other guild halls, I gotta admit. The place has a very communal vibe to it, and despite on the surface it looking like a tomb of sorts, there's some touches like rugs and furniture that makes it feel lived in. And everyone is actually incredibly nice and welcoming. For a group of cold-blooded killers, they really have a sense of loyalty. It's immediately obvious that the whole family thing is taken quite literally by these people, and that starts to lay the groundwork for what truly makes this guild so brilliant. We are greeted by Ochiva, the self-described mistress of the sanctuary. She runs the sanctuary for the most part and is a very welcoming lady. She's delighted to have us here, but we won't be working directly with her just yet. Vincenti Valtieri will be giving us our beginning contracts. Going down to see him, we learn he's actually a vampire, but like everyone else, he's a very domesticated hunter of the night, and even promises to offer us a chance to inherit the Dark Gift as soon as we prove ourselves in the guild. I'm good. Thanks, though. He explains the way contracts work, which are, like any other guilds, kind of just quests. But contracts have a twist. So the Mages Guild and the Fighters Guild gave very simple quests that just involve fetching items, talking to people, or killing baddies in dungeons. So they didn't really have to take that annoying thing called player agency into account when making the quests. The Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood are different beasts, though, where quests on the surface follow similar lines, but in fact are much more open-ended. The problem is that a lot of players will take the path of least resistance, and the other quests prove that that path is just killing and looting everything until the journal says you've done good. So the good guilds had to figure out a way to get the players to actually engage with mechanics and content in a way that will be more satisfying than just shooting and looting.
It's been over 40 runs.
The guild had rules. Can't kill people in jobs or else you pay a blood price, which was usually around 1 gold. And you would gain bounties in cities because most of the quests took
It's a 5% drop rate, by the way, so it should have dropped like
a different
2.
approach because, well, killing people is the whole point of the guild. So instead we have bonuses if certain parameters are met. Let me explain. So the Dark Brotherhood aren't some thugs you give 100 gold on the street to bludgeon your nemesis to death. They're a very professional organization. There's a structure, procedures, and policies. People perform a ritual to the Night Mother, the true head of the organization, and she in turn hears their prayers for murder, who relays this to her listener. And he or she then dispatches representatives to work out the details of the contract with the person performing the ritual and receives payment. These people aren't going through all this trouble because they want the Dark Brotherhood to murder their target any old way. There's usually specifics to deflect suspicions or to send a message. They go to the Dark Brotherhood because they have a reputation for being extremely exact, pulling their contracts and the details prescribed. See, we could go through each quest just slaughtering everyone and forgoing the stealth and thought needed to figure out the puzzles the designers set up for us. But that will not only rob us of a satisfying experience, that will also forego our bonus. And this isn't just some worthless gold. No, these are actually very powerful and useful magical artifacts that are very relevant to a stealthy assassin character. You want the goods? Stick to the script. You might be thinking, you've been complaining about quests that steal agency from the player. Now you're complimenting a guild that just does that. Make up your mind. It's true, this is technically depriving the player of their agency, but in order to make quests, the player must in some manner give up some agency. Quests are where an open-world game is given some structure. That structure, by its very nature, deprives the player of some freedoms. The key is not to ask them to surrender too much.
Yeah, man, I'd like a very powerful and useful magical artifact. That sounds pretty cool.
Reward them for that compromise with either in-game rewards or, better yet, with an enjoyable gameplay or story experience. If the player doesn't surrender enough agency, they are going to find ways to circumvent the neat little ride you as a game designer have taken the time to construct for them, no matter how enjoyable that ride is. That's human nature. Aside from some fringe cases and players coming back for a second go-around, most people will select the path of least resistance, and that's usually pretty well ingrained in them after, say, 30 hours in-game. They are going to have habits that the rest of the game has instilled in them, and those habits are likely not to be what you want them bringing into this to cruise through it. A quest is meant to challenge, ideally, and if they can snooze through it by doing exactly what they've been doing for 30 hours already, they aren't going to find a challenge. And you want a challenge because that's what delivers a satisfying gameplay experience. That's literally the underlying principles of games, be they tabletop video games or the physical variety. Overcoming adversity is satisfying, and the act of overcoming those challenges can provide moments of fun. Even in a story-rich game where challenge isn't the key, the challenge there is then navigating the world and having your mental expectations of challenges subverted. Something about the experience must be novel. So yeah, even your walking simulators need to have a challenge in their design. This is why so many of the quests in Oblivion are just so fucking dull. They don't challenge because the designers were afraid to ask players to commit to a style of play. With that very difficult-to-meet parameter, they found the most consistent formula was just drop in dungeons full of enemies and use combat to carry the experience. Except, like I said in the first video, combat in this game sucks, and even if it didn't, copying the exact quest formula across 200 quests will get stale. This is why we get bonuses in the Dark Brotherhood. Because when it comes to conditioning human behavior, you can generally do so in one of two ways. Punish people for coloring outside of the lines, or incentivizing the preferred behavior. The Thieves Guild took the former route with its blood price fines, while the Dark Brotherhood went the latter route with bonuses. I'm generally a much bigger fan of incentives as opposed to punishments, but that's a different discussion. Let's just move on from that. So, why didn't I complain about the blood price in the Thieves Guild? Well, by virtue of the guild being so much better than anything else in the game up until the Dark Brotherhood, just the intrinsic value of having fun was enough to get me to comply to its rules. I didn't need the threat of the blood price to get me to follow them. See, the Thieves Guild gets an enormous boost to its perceived quality due to the fact that it exists in a game that has the Mages Guild. Had the other guilds been as well designed as it in the Dark Brotherhood, I would have come across that blood price as a less compelling disincentive as the Dark Brotherhood bonuses. But I had to wade through the Mages Guild's bullshit, so the Thieves Guild got a huge pass for a lot of its shortcomings just because it trusted that I had a brain. But we just got on a big tangent there, so let's get back on track. We get our first 4 contracts with Valtieri, and they're all quite simple in scope and objective.
They literally just admitted, like, oh, well, my opinion is biased, but whatever.
Out of this one by just telling us, yeah, there's some cargo boxes on the docks. You should use them to get smuggled aboard. In the future, the optimal path or the hidden shortcuts won't be nearly as obvious. If we ask our fellow guildmates about our contracts, they might spell those things out a little bit more clearly, so you might want to avoid doing that, despite what Valtieri suggests, if you want to figure things out for yourself. So we head to the Imperial City Waterfront District and cram ourselves into a little crate conveniently left open on the dock. Just in case you weren't listening to Valtieri earlier and needed another heavy-handed hint. This is a tutorial assassination quest, so these gestures are easily forgiven, and the quest is incredibly short.
To be clear, I have absolutely zero opinion on this matter at all. I don't even really know what he's talking about.
We get to overhear some conversations between the pirates, which gives us some flavor and humor, and even suggests who might have set up the contract with the Dark Brotherhood in the first place.
I told you a million times it wasn't my fault. The wheel was covered with gold droppings. My hand slipped. Could have happened to anyone.
The dialogue is also used to signal to us when it's safe. Once the coast is clear, we reach the captain's quarters and get rid of him, which is actually a little challenging because he fights back, unlike Rufio, who just slept his way into the abyss. With the captain dead and the crew loudly banging on the door asking what's going on, we dip out the back and book it back to the sanctuary for our reward and our bonus. The second quest is similar to the first in that it's pretty simple, and Valtieri spells out the method quite explicitly. We are to sneak into a man's house and loosen the braces that hold up the stuffed animal head that hangs over his favorite chair as he sits between certain hours during the evening. This is meant to be staged to look like an accident, and his manservant Grom is to be unharmed. Other than that, though, the details are left for us to figure out, such as how to get into the house undetected. Reconning the area around the manor reveals a door to the cellar, giving us access to a discreet route to the bedroom, where behind a board we find the braces. A quick undoing of the fastenings drops the thing onto the dude's head, causing a commotion below. As we sneak out, we can see Grom standing over the body of his dead master, so we gotta slip out before he notices the assassin sneaking by the doorway. Job done, bonus earned, nice. Third contract, and following the pattern, is more open-ended. It's also one of my personal favorite quests of the game. This one tasks us with assassinating a Dunmer prisoner in the Imperial prison, Vaylin Dreth. You might remember him as being the ass who antagonizes you at the beginning of the game. While someone wants him dead, I can't possibly imagine why. There's a secret way into the prison, a way Valtieri implies we know quite well. So long as we kill Dreth and leave the guards alone, we get our bonus. I love this quest for several reasons. First, I'm a sucker for developers having us return to the very beginning levels again, but with some kind of twist. That feeling of things coming full circle, returning but more powerful and with different motives, really instills a satisfying sense of progression that is nice to be reminded of from time to time. The second reason this quest is great is that it's the first of the Brotherhood quests that involves a lot of sneaking around characters who are likely to detect us. The previous two quests had some sneaking, but we were never in any real danger of being detected. This quest has guards on patrol, and while it's not super challenging, especially for a character like mine with a high sneak skill, it still requires some thought and attention. We gotta be on the lookout and frequently hold back as guards disperse and duck into dark corners as a patrol comes by. It really makes it feel like you're an actual assassin. The third reason I love this quest is just antagonizing Dreth. We get some amazing dialogue between the guard and Dreth, and I'm almost positive this guard is the one who set the contract up. Who else even knows this said sap exists aside from us and the guard here? Dreth is obviously unstable and shouldn't be out in the streets, and the fact that we can't harm any guards leads me to my conclusion.
11 years in this rat-infested hole. But I'm getting out, and you'll still be stuck in here. Yeah!
Oh, yeah? Where will you go, huh? Whoa. Right. And you'll be rich, too. Oh, and you'll become a king. And you know what I think, Dreth? I think you'll be back. Vado is correct.
You'll see, you Imperial dog. When I get out of here, all of Tamriel will know my name. Vaylin Dreth. Vaylin Dreth.
All right, all right. Tempted to let you out right now. Just shut up.
Anyway, once the guard is done tormenting Dreth one last time, it's our turn.
Wait, I know you. You're the one. The day the Emperor was killed. They went through your cell. You lucky bastard. But you came back? Come on, you've got to help me. Let old Vaylin out of this cell. You've got your freedom, now give me mine. What do you say, huh? Come on, friend. The Night Mother. No, guards! Guards! Help me! Somebody help! Assassin! Run away!
Valtieri was right, it is satisfying. We then swipe the keys to the place and just stroll out like we're some passing civilian. Absolutely brilliant. Back in Shadenhall, we pick up our fourth and final Valtieri contract. This one isn't an assassination at all, but the man staged his own death to get out of debt. He borrowed from the wrong people, and they really just wanted dead, so this guy paid the Brotherhood a great deal of gold to stage his death before the hitman comes and actually does it. We are to make it look like we are there to kill the man, and using a special poison make it look like he is actually dead. The hope is the hitman will think the job is done and go and tell his employers. And that will buy our employers some time to sneak out of Cyrodiil once we've given him the antidote to revive him. My favorite detail is how the Dark Brotherhood doesn't ordinarily do these sorts of jobs because
The Dark Brotherhood is not in the business of staging deaths, no matter how much gold is offered. Sithis demands blood, and blood must be paid. In order to accept the contract, we demanded a life. Mortieri offered his mother, and we accepted. Lucien has already taken care of that detail.
there really isn't much to this quest, truth be told. There's very little we can do except go to Coral and do as we're told. The dialogue makes up for some of it though, and it is a very brief quest, so I don't mind it too much. It helps show the Dark Brotherhood is a very multifaceted organization that is willing to take on very unique requests so long as it involves life and death. It's a neat diversion and serves to bookend our tutorial-ish contracts with Valtieri. It all goes off without a hitch and we get our bonus. Easy peasy. In the meantime, we also grab a quest from one of our guildmates. It's not technically part of the guild, but it falls within the general vibe of the guild. Tanava reveals he and Ochiva were Shadowscales back in Blackmesh. Shadowscales are taken once they are hatched to train in the arts of assassination to carry out duties in service to the royal powers down there. The two of them trained with a third, Scartail. Well, Scartail never left Blackmarsh and continued to serve as a Shadowscale, but dishonored his vows and bailed on the job, fleeing to Cyrodiil. Because Shadowscales are forbidden from killing each other, he needs to contract us to do the job. All we need to do is bring Scartail as hard as proof. Being loyal to our fellow guildmates and bound by the honorable code of being cold-hearted killers, we accept and head down to the edge of Cyrodiil where Scartail is hiding. When we get there, we find he's already weakened and unarmed, having barely fought off a royal assassin from Blackmarsh already. He offers to pay us off in exchange for his life, and we can bring the heart of the Argonian assassinated. In order to pull off this off, we will need to do some detective work. I'm not sure how I feel about this quest. On the one hand, I like having to go around town asking people about our target to locate him, and it's really cool getting to piece together an idea of what this guy's life is and his story and trying to figure out how to end it. But on the other hand, I'm left wondering a few things.
I think it's fine on my end.
The whole point of us killing him away from people is to reduce suspicion, then wouldn't going around town asking everyone
OBS says 0 drop frames.
Quite a bit of it? And how does killing him away from witnesses make the Brotherhood less suspect?
Probably just a YouTube moment.
Clean professional kills was what made the Brotherhood so famous. Wouldn't it actually be better to kill him in a less professional way? Never really bought the explanations for the challenges set up to justify our bonuses for this.
Yeah, that wasn't me.
Felt less thought out than the others. Asking around town leads us to the Tiber Septon Inn, where the innkeeper tells us he lives in the hotel with his wife, who pays for everything because Phalion is now a skooma addict who spends most of his time roaming the streets looking for it. We locate his wife, who, feeling like she could trust us because our magical disposition number is high with her, spills her guts about Phalion and her fears about what he does all day. It's a very jarring conversation because I've never spoken to this woman before, and she just starts rattling off her worries to us like we're her mother. Thanks to her, though, we wind up learning about the abandoned house he goes to do with skooma, which sounds like the perfect place to murder him. So off it is to the place where we set up and wait for him to show up. And once he does, we discreetly kill him and skip back to the sanctuary, a job well done. It would have been more appropriate if we managed to kill him with some sort of poison skooma or something, maybe selling it to him here in the house as we pose as a skooma dealer or something. That way it just looks like an overdose as opposed to him now having an owl. Maybe the idea is that people will miss the arrow sticking out of him and assume it was the drug use that did it, or maybe it was another drug addict that did him in. I don't really know, but this quest has too many plot holes for me to really give it much credit. The second quest actually falls along this idea though. Ochiva entrusts us with another contract to infiltrate a fort to poison a veteran and captain of a mercenary company. In order to do this, we need to sneak into the fort completely undetected and swap the medicine he is given daily with a poison. It's absolutely essential nobody sees us, which means a lot of sneaking like a good assassin should. If the last quest was a little underwhelming, this one is more fun and challenging. One of our guildmates actually gives us the location of a back way to the fort that will help us get in undetected. Following the advice, we sneak into the fort and dodge patrols, getting some dialogue between a disgruntled member of the company and a more loyal one as they discuss the unchanging condition of their leader. $10 on the disgruntled underling being the one who issued the contract. Employee dissatisfaction aside, we sneak into the chamber where the captain is and swap the medicine with the poison. Then it's just a matter of sneaking back out of the fort and dodging a few more patrols in the process. This isn't a challenging quest, especially since we got a good sneak skill and detect life, which lets us wall hack our enemies to time when and where we gotta move to avoid getting caught. There probably should have been a few more guards and faster patrols, but it wasn't completely straightforward, so it wasn't too boring.
Do you like parties? Because you can invite me. Of course, you'll be hearing all the other guests. Are you ready to attend?
This quest is Oblivion at its absolute prime. This is what this game could achieve when every component is working together, when every aspect
Come
that
on,
makes
man.
this game up is used. So, as Achieva explained, we're going to a party with the intent of murdering all the guests. Now, we could just go in and start hacking people to death, but that would spoil the fun and forfeit the bonus, which doesn't even make sense why it would. It's just the designer beating the player over the head saying, just don't ruin it for yourself, you jackass. Seriously, this is a quest about social engineering, and I really wish there were more quests like this. If there had been, I would have rolled a high personality and speechcraft character every single time. I would have sacrificed 3 other guilds if it got us a whole guild-length quest chain revolving around speech. But, wishful thinking aside, let's go through just one of the ways we can tackle this quest, because we actually have options for this one.
Go, socialize. Talk to those fine people, and then plunge your knife into their throats when they ain't looking.
The first step is doing a little recon, getting to know our targets, our fellow party guests. We first meet Matilda Petite, a supposed Breton noblewoman from High Rock, who seems just a little too eager to want this money to be a rich noblewoman. She also hates Dunmers, so we may have a personal problem with this one. We also got Primo and Jones, a stuck-up rich guy who used to be good old-fashioned fun. He didn't even need the money. Nels the Naughty is a Nord. Living up to the stereotype of Nords, he drinks a lot, especially when people start dropping dead in the house. And he also hates the Empire. Neville is a no-nonsense retired legionnaire with a deep hatred for Nords, making him the perfect foil for Neville. Probably the only 2 people in this house who might figure out our true intentions. Then we got Devesi Dran, a fellow Dunmer. She's a sweet girl whom I spare the horror by killing her first. So it goes like this. First play off the little crush Devosi and Primo have by convincing the girl she should go wait for Primo in his room to seduce him. Because, well, he's totally into her.
He did? Oh my goodness, what should I do? Should I talk to him? Or maybe play hard to get? Or should I, or would that be too formal? Oh, you think so? I mean, it is rather forward, but I like it. All right, then. I'll wait for him in his room upstairs. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
With her hopes up and successfully isolated from the group, she makes the easiest first kill. This disturbs the rest of the guests and starts to create tension, but it's not enough yet to provoke any of them into action.
Yes, the poor girl is dead. What a shame. Well, I guess she won't be finding the gold.
Primo ends up our second victim as he hangs around in the library as everyone else heads off to bed. It's not the most glamorous kill, but gets the job done. With 2 guests dead,
Going to kill myself.
Neville and Nels are ready to slit each other's throats, and the old lady Matilda is caught in between. Nobody suspects us yet because, despite us lacking any sort of alibi, they all trust us, seeing as we charmed and bribed them. Playing off of Neville's paranoia, we convince him to run upstairs and grab his Legion gear, and now events move quickly.
One less dark elf in the world. And now there's one less person to find the gold as well. It's a good day, don't you think?
This leaves Matilda alone upstairs for about a quarter of a second. Plenty of time to give her a taste of Morrowind justice. With Neville somehow sensing Matilda's death upstairs, he's convinced Nels did it. His hatred for Nord's so great he ignores the fact that Nels was downstairs the moment he heard the old lady's body hit the floor.
Yes, we must kill that foul Nord before he slits our throats. Aye! So many people.
Now it's just a matter of escaping with his best buddy and shit, he was the murderer the entire time. God damn it. The quest sort of suffers on account of Bethesda's patented AI telepathy technology, removing the thrill of posing or hiding bodies and waiting for people to make the grisly discoveries. But I get the designers were working with a very rich AI system. Just the thought of all the possibilities having a discovery system would open up would have me replaying this quest a dozen times each playthrough. With all the guests dead and none of them ever figuring out we were the ones doing the killing, Ochiva is pleased. She actually gives us a straight permanent stat buff.
50 kills. No drop.
This is the sort of reward that should have been more common in the other guilds, not just worthless golden robes. Our next job is a contract sanctioned by the Black Hand itself. Adamus Philida must die. Imperial Watch Captain has finally retired, thinking he'd won and escaped the wrath of the Dark Brotherhood by retiring to Lightwing. Turns out he's wrong. Dead wrong, in fact. We are given the Rose of Sithis, an insta-kill if used on an unarmored target, and the instructions to kill him: cut off his finger with his Imperial signet ring still on it, and stick it in the desk of his successor in order to score the bonus. It's brutal, it's sick, and it's pretty fucking great. So, it's off to Lightwing to get it done. There's several issues that need to be resolved for this job to go smoothly. First is Adamas Philida himself. He may be retired, but he's still a well-armed and armored foe, so taking him on when he's able to fight back would complicate a clean kill. Second is that he's followed by a bodyguard most of the time, so we have to either get him away from the guard or kill him without anyone seeing us. And that's where the Rose of Sithis can come in handy. The third is that he moves around all the time and is usually in a public setting.
So why don't you just...
And finally, we need his finger for a bonus, so we will have to reveal ourselves from a sniping spot if using the rose is the route we end up going. This is generally one of the most difficult quests in the Brotherhood chain to pull off completely perfect. In fact, this might be the first time I actually managed to pull it off without incurring a bounty or starting a fight with a bodyguard. I don't know if it was luck or if I actually did manage to do it all correctly, but it was satisfying to get a good run on camera, that's for sure. It's pretty easy to track Philida down once in Lightwing. He walks the streets in his white Imperial armor, making him a very easy target to track. After that, it's simply a matter of following the man until he's in a good spot. Generally, the best place to catch him is when he goes to take a swim in the pond. That's when he's away from his bodyguard and without his armor. Then it's a simple matter of finding a good spot to snipe him undetected and moving quickly to snatch the finger. Once that's done, we gotta make it to the Imperial City and sneak into the office where his desk is and slip the finger into the desk, which is a task that shouldn't be underestimated, as there's guards all over the place, and they don't take too kindly to assassins trying to drop severed fingers in their offices. Once it's all taken care of, it's back to the Sanctuary to deliver the news to Uchiva, who is very pleased Philida will be spending the rest of eternity being tormented by Sithis for all the headaches he's caused the Dark Brotherhood. I mean, I gotta feel bad for the guy, he was just doing his job. But I also appreciate the fact that the devs didn't try to sugarcoat this by softening the blow and making Philida some evil tyrant or something. Nah, he was just a man who evil fucks who took life without any sort of remorse. That's what it means to be a Dark Brotherhood assassin, and it could have been very easy for the devs to try and justify saving the player's soft sensibilities. But that would have ruined the true experience of playing an evil character. It's strange because Bethesda games typically don't allow players to play evil characters, even though player freedom is such a sacred pillar of their game design. They always seem to come just short of letting the players truly be free, but not with the Dark Brotherhood. There's no minced meanings here, we're just bad people doing bad deeds. Even the Thieves Guild had some altruistic components to them. The Dark Brotherhood is really the only bastion for evil bastards. Speaking of evil bastards, Lucian Lachance has need of us, sending us a sealed letter when we see Uchiva. Whatever it is, according to the letter, it is extremely urgent, and we shouldn't tell anyone we are going to see him in a secret hideaway just outside of Shadenhall. This is where I began to believe in the greatness that is a high sneak skill, and I began to suspect stealth was actually just a little bit broken now, making reaching Lachance in his fort kind of easy. He informs us the Shadenhall Sanctuary has been compromised by a traitor. The traitor has been operating for some time before we even joined the guild, so we have been absolved of any suspicions, but the rest of the Sanctuary is not so fortunate. Everyone else is suspect, and because of that, the Black Hand has authorized the rite of purification. Everyone in the Sanctuary must die. It's a drastic measure that has only been done twice in the history of the Brotherhood, but it's through drastic measures from time to time that the organization has managed to survive for so long. The idea is that if everyone in the Sanctuary is purged, the traitor will be among those killed. Think of it like amputating a limb to save a patient's life if you're feeling macabre. All the souls of the Sanctuary will be offered to Sithis as a sign of fealty, which sounds like a real rotten deal for those involved, unless Sithis shows some mercy to his devoted children. But something tells me the god known as the Dreadfather torments souls indiscriminately. Reservations aside, it is our duty to the Dark Brotherhood to carry out the task. We are elevated to the rank of Silencer and will be Lucian Lachance's right hand moving forward. As an official member of the Black Hand, many of the tenets that bound us previously have been lifted. So so long as we surf Black Hand and Sithis. So it's back to Shaden Hall to get it done. The best way to go about this is isolating each member and taking them down one at a time. They are all masters of combat and are usually armed and armored, so using stealth is absolutely the way to go unless we want to alert the whole sanctuary and get mobbed to death. One of our guildmates spends her time in a private room in the upstairs of an inn in town, so she's the easiest one to target first. Sneak attack with an arrow does a trick, and then it's time to head to the sanctuary for a more methodical deconstruction. Lucian gave us a single poisoned apple, which is great, but if we want to speed this up, we need more. So we grab all the poisoned apples we can and clear out all the food in the living quarters and replace it with poisoned apples. Then it's just a matter of waiting and seeing what happens. This is absolutely a very inefficient way of killing the sanctuary, but it is satisfying watching NPCs get killed by the crazy AI routines. It's worth a try at any rate. Grom is the first to taste the forbidden fruit, and thankfully so, he's probably the only one who would have been a real bitch to fight. He falls over like a sack of potatoes after a few bites and then sort of just lays there for 2 days as no one seems to notice or care. Once again, the limitations of Bethesda's AI is pretty obvious in this quest, and it makes the thrill of killing all of them rather muted. None of them realize they're in any sort of mortal danger unless they see us attacking someone in front of them, even as the bodies of their guildmates start to litter the halls of the sanctuary. Valteria is up next as he spends most of his time alone at the bottom of the sanctuary in his private room. So we sneak up on him as he sleeps and cut him a few times with a fiery dagger, which is his weakness as a vampire. Marashdar dies somewhere off camera, and I was never able to find his body. He no doubt ate an apple himself and died in some unknown location. Ochiva goes to train in the training hall by herself, so a stealthy poison arrow does a trick there. The remaining 2 are then pretty easy kills on their own, and with that, the purification is complete. It's nothing short of hilarious that I feel more for the deaths of these evil murderers than I do for any of the other deaths of any of the other characters in earlier quests in the game. And that's really just nothing short of an indictment on the poor writing of the previous quest chains. None of those characters, save for maybe a couple in the Thieves Guild, had any sort of development or even a personality. They were all just vehicles for some shoddy, melodramatic plots. So when Saint Traven lights himself on fire, I feel nothing except maybe just a little relief I no longer have to be his errand. But having to kill every member of the Shaden Sanctuary feels kind of bad. They weren't even that great of characters either. None of them had any sort of development or character arcs, but it's just when compared to literally any of the others we've come across so far in this game, it sucks to lose the only ones that actually stood out. Fortunately, we still got Lucian the chance. Well, kinda. Up until this point, the Dark Brotherhood has pretty much exemplified what Oblivion can
How are you
do.
not
It's
bored of
quest
stream? I
designed
haven't
to
gotten
work
a
with all of its systems.
drop in like 60.
Gameplay, world
I haven't gotten a
design,
drop the entire
exploration,
stream.
NPC interactions.
How long have I been streaming?
That all pretty much goes out the window now in exchange for what fucked every other quest chain, dungeon quests. This is the big black eye for the Dark Brotherhood quest line. We are now going to be receiving our quests through dead drop locations. No more talking to people like Valtieri, Ochiva, or Lachance himself.
Well, also I have
No, we'll just be getting
know,
quests through dialogue boxes.
a YouTube
Low-rent
video on the
dialogue
top right.
But simple text nonetheless. We lost all those colorful personalities,
Or top left.
lost the ability to ask guildmates for inputs on jobs, and instead just get quest markers in dungeons. So fucking lame. This part smacks of filler, and while there's plenty of in-game reasoning for this part, dead drops are more secret and more secure, and really does make you feel like the lone assassin out in the field. I just have such a bad taste in my mouth from 3 long quest chains already beating us over the head with drawn-out excessive dungeon crawls. Having some of the most intricately designed quests in the game coupled with a great base of operations filled with interesting characters all yanked away at the same time really spoils the experience for this stretch of the quest. As a result, I'm going to plunge through this pretty quickly because there just isn't much to discuss. If it isn't for the story that the designer manages to weave all this filler into, this would have been enough to sink the Dark Brotherhood below the Thieves Guild, which had not a single quest that felt like filler. But this all ends up serving a purpose, so this is just a bitter pill that has to be swallowed. The first dead drop quest has us killing a necromancer who is attempting to turn himself into an immortal lich. Now, this would have been an excellent premise for a Mage's Guild quest, because stopping a necromancer from becoming an immortal undead seems like something that they ought to be worried about. But instead it falls to the Dark Brotherhood to do it, and it just seems very out of place. They let us assassinate him by simply pickpocketing an item off of him, killing him instantly as it holds his life force as he transforms. But that's about all the assassin-y stuff going on here. It's a lame quest and isn't really worth much getting into. The next quest is, in theory anyway, much better. We are tasked with wiping out an entire family. Now, this is the stuff the Dark Brotherhood lives for. We know the location of the matriarch of the family and nothing else, so we go pay her a visit, and the senile old lady believes we are a courier for a gift delivery service and not an assassin looking to wipe her family out. So she gives us a list of all the locations of her children and makes the job of hunting them down all but completely trivial. It just becomes a matter of following quest markers and finding ways of getting rid of them. She's probably the real highlight of the quest, as the rest of them lack any interesting dialogue. So we kill her first. And then it's on to going down the list. One daughter is a recluse living in a cave with some wild animals, making her the easiest to kill with no witnesses. One owns an inn with an Imperial soldier constantly posted in there, but with the right angle and a sneak attack, he's removed. Another works as a guard for Umbacano in the Imperial City, and I didn't even bother trying to find an appropriate way to kill him. I just attacked him in the basement of his employer's mansion and took the bounty for the assault. Finally, the last daughter is a guard in Leyawiin and patrols the streets alone. Unable to kill her in one shot, we end up incurring a significant bounty for this one because she managed to telepathically report the crime before dying, I guess. I don't really know or care because I know what's waiting for us now that this whole family is dead. I had a whole segment dissecting the next few assassination dead drops, but honestly, they are just all so dull and straightforward, it's just not worth getting into. The lack of bonuses, because those disappeared with the dead drops, really begins to show, and these quests just become a matter of going to the quest markers and making the target dead. There's very little thought needed, and some of them you won't even attract attention from the guards if you're caught fighting them in the streets because they paid off the city guards to look the other way. It's literally just go here and fight this person. This feels more like the arena than the Dark Brotherhood, so rather than going through this piece by piece and seeing this video hasn't had a montage yet, let's just do it that way instead.
Alright, this is the last run I'm doing, and then I'm gonna go eat dinner. Might do GD when I get back. Ow. I mean, I will literally be gone like 10 minutes.
No. No! I'm too late. I thought I could get here in time. Thought I could stop you. By Sithis, what have you done? What madness has claimed you? You have betrayed me. You have betrayed the Dark Brotherhood. Why?
Yeah.
I am here.
Yeah, if you were gonna watch, I'd probably just do this again. But if you're not, I'll do GD.
But I can see the confusion in your eyes. You have no idea what I'm talking about, do you?
So, we've been duped and just murdered like half the Black Hand, including the listener himself. The Black Hand knew they were being hunted, which explains why they were getting increasingly more difficult, luring us into more elaborate traps and remote locations. It's an interesting way to retroactively reframe the previous few quests and totally copy the quest
215
for
kills
some
total.
quest. So we didn't give up all that made the previous half of the quest chain great for nothing. These got a sweet plot twist that doesn't feel completely invented.
Hour and a half with no drops. Super awesome.